October 3rd, 2023, 11:47 p.m. The ultrasound photograph shouldn't exist. Vittorio Castellano held it under his desk lamp, the same lamp his father used to read death warrants. Two tiny shapes floated in black and white static. Twins. 7 months along. His wife was asleep upstairs, breathing heavy with third trimester weight. He set down the photograph and picked up his pill bottle. Gabapentin, 600 milligrams, for the nerve damage, for the scar tissue that climbed from hip to sternum, where the bullet had torn through him 9 years ago. 27 seconds of bleeding, 14 hours of surgery, 6 months of physical therapy, and one sentence from the surgeon he'd paid to forget. Natural conception is extremely unlikely. Not impossible. Extremely unlikely. Welcome to Windblow True Crime Channel, where I drop daily update about stories with depth and impact. Big thanks for my viewer and subscriber. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Vittorio had never told Isabella. Couldn't. That weakness was a language this world didn't speak. But mathematics didn't lie. Footsteps on the stairs. Grace, the maid, finishing her evening rounds. Jamaican woman, early 40s, 6 years in the household. She moved through rooms like water. She appeared in the doorway, carrying folded towels. "Mr. Castellano, I didn't know you were still awake." Her accent softened his name into something almost gentle. "Just reviewing documents," he said. Grace entered to replace the bathroom towels. She never looked at his desk, never glanced at his papers. But her reflection in the window moved too carefully. "Grace, how long have you worked for me?" "6 years this November, Mr. Castellano." "You've been reliable." Something flickered across her face. "Thank you, sir." She left. He heard her descend to the basement staff quarters. Anna Vittorio opened his wife's medical records, the ones his hacker had pulled from the Swiss fertility clinic. 8 trips to Geneva, IVF treatments, hormone injections, all documented, all billed to his account. Except the clinic's records showed a different patient name for those dates. Someone had forged everything. His phone buzzed. Text from Dante, his head of security. "Grace Osei's references check out, but her daughter's at Howard University. Full scholarship, anonymous donor. Created the same month Grace was hired." Vittorio walked upstairs to the master bedroom. Isabella slept on her side, hands cradling her belly. He opened her nightstand drawer. Beneath the books, a second ultrasound. Same twins. Different date, 3 months earlier. And a handwritten note. "Our perfect family. Asun." The signature was a single initial. M. His phone buzzed again. Unknown number. "Check the hidden camera in your study, northwest corner behind the Canaletto painting. Been there 4 months. He went back downstairs, found the camera, removed the SD card, loaded the footage. 6 weeks of recordings, his meetings, his calls, his private moments. All uploaded, all transmitted. The timestamp on the last upload, 11:52 p.m., 5 minutes ago. Grace had just been in his study. Vittorio sat at his desk and did something he hadn't done since the surgery. He prayed, not to God, to mathematics. That there was some equation where the twins were his, where his wife loved him, where his maid was just a maid. But the ultrasound sat in front of him like a confession. And somewhere in the house, Grace was awake, waiting for something he couldn't see yet. Grace Osei didn't sleep anymore. Not real sleep. Just 2-hour intervals between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. when the house stopped breathing and she could let her guard down. She sat on the edge of her basement cot, burner phone glowing in the dark. The message had come through at 11:54 p.m., 2 minutes after she'd left Vittorio's study. "Target confirmed pregnant. Extraction in 60 days. Remain in position." 6 years. 2,190 days of being invisible. Grace deleted the message and pulled out the photograph she kept folded in her Bible. Her daughter, Amara, at Howard University's gates. 19 years old, free, safe. Everything Grace had sold her soul for. The memory came anyway. Kingston, 2017. Her husband's hands around her throat. Amara screaming in the next room. The choice, run or die. She'd run. Left everything. It crossed 3 borders with fake papers and $400 sewn into her bra. Found work cleaning houses in New Jersey. Sent money orders to her sister every month so Amara could finish school. Then the FBI found her. Not to deport her, to recruit her. Vittorio Castellano runs one of the largest human trafficking networks on the East Coast. We need someone inside his house. Someone he'll never suspect. Grace had said no. Had to say no. Then they showed her the file on her husband. Interpol warrant. Kingston PD couldn't touch him. He'd been asking around about Amara's location. The FBI agent had slid an envelope across the table. Full scholarship to Howard, student visa for Amara, asylum for Grace, protection. 6 years. That's all we need. You give us evidence. We give you a life. Grace had signed the paper with a hand that didn't shake. Not because mothers don't shake. They survive. Now she moved through Vittorio's house like a ghost. Dusting, listening, photographing. She knew which floorboards creaked, which rooms had cameras, which conversations mattered. She knew Vittorio took pills for nerve damage from a shooting 9 years ago. She knew he and Isabella slept in separate bedrooms. She knew Isabella made calls at 2 a.m. to someone saved in her phone as Cousin Marco. She knew Isabella had been pregnant for 7 months, but the first positive test Grace found was 11 months ago. Miscarriage, secret earlier pregnancy. Grace had photographed everything, sent it encrypted, never asked questions. That was the job: observe, report, survive. But tonight, something had shifted. Vittorio had looked at her differently, not with suspicion, with recognition. I'd like he'd finally seen her. Grace stood and walked to the small bathroom, lifted the tile behind the toilet, retrieved the secondary phone, the one her FBI handler didn't know about. She scrolled to the only contact, A. Osei. Her daughter hadn't responded to a message in 4 months. Grace typed anyway. I love you. I'm sorry for everything. If something happens, remember, I chose you. She didn't send it. Upstairs, a door opened. Footsteps in the hallway. Not Vittorio's heavy tread. Lighter. Female. Isabella was awake. Grace checked the time. 1:47 a.m. She crept to the basement stairs, stayed in the shadows, watched through the crack in the door. Isabella descended to the first floor, moving carefully, one hand on the banister, one on her belly. She went to Vittorio's study, locked the door behind her. Grace's heart hammered. She'd installed a listening device in that room 3 years ago, hidden in the base of the antique globe. She pulled out her earpiece, synced the frequency. Isabella's voice, barely a whisper. It's me. He knows something. I saw him looking at the medical records. A man's voice responded, young, confident, American accent. What did you tell him? Nothing. He didn't ask. But Marco, if he finds out, he won't. Old man's too proud to admit he can't father children. Besides, in 8 weeks it won't matter. Grace's blood went cold. You promised no one gets hurt, Isabella said. And they won't. An accident. Quick. Clean. You become the widow. I become the guardian. The twins inherit everything. We control the family. Silence. Then Isabella, voice cracking. What about the maid? Grace. She's been here too long. She sees too much. Marco laughed. The maid. Baby, she'll disappear with the others. No one remembers the help. The call ended. Grace stood in the dark basement, earpiece still in, pulse screaming. Marco, Vittorio's nephew. She'd seen him at family dinners. Charming, handsome, always standing just close enough to power. The twins weren't Vittorio's, they were Marco's, and in 8 weeks, Vittorio would be dead. Grace's phone buzzed. Her FBI handler. Meeting tomorrow 0600 diner on Route 9. Bring latest intel. Raid is moving up. She stared at the message. The raid would save the trafficking victims. 20, maybe 30 women held in warehouses she'd helped locate. But it would also put Isabella in federal custody. The twins would be born in witness protection or foster care, and Marco would walk free. No evidence. And no charges, just a grieving almost uncle. Grace climbed back into bed, looked at the unsent message to her daughter, and made a decision that would destroy everything. October 7th, 2023, 6 p.m. Pink and blue balloons choked every room. The gender reveal party had started an hour ago. 70 guests. Vittorio's capos, their wives, business associates who smiled with their mouths and calculated with their eyes. Grace moved through the crowd carrying champagne trays, invisible in her black uniform. "A miracle," someone said near the bar. She recognized the voice. Dante, Vittorio's head of security. Boss who couldn't have kids for 9 years? Suddenly twins? His companion laughed. Maybe miracles happen. Or maybe something else does. Grace kept walking, felt their eyes track her. In the living room, Isabella glowed in a white maternity dress, one hand on her belly, the other accepting congratulations. She looked like a Madonna painting, untouchable. Vittorio stood beside her. They're playing the proud father. But Grace had learned to read the space between people. He stood 3 inches too far away. His hand on Isabella's shoulder rested there without pressure. Performance, not intimacy. "Speech!" someone called. Vittorio raised his glass. The room silenced. 17 years I've run this family. Built what my father started. Protected what matters. His voice carried the weight of authority, but Grace heard the fracture underneath. These children, my children, they're the future. Everything I've done, every choice I've made, it's for them. The room erupted in applause. Grace saw Isabella's smile slip for half a second, saw Marco standing in the corner watching. He was younger than the other men, 29, handsome in an expensive suit. He raised his glass to Vittorio, then caught Isabella's eye, and the look between them lasted less than a second. Grace photographed it anyway. The camera built into her watch clicked silently. After the speech, guests filtered toward the buffet. Grace moved to clear glasses from the study, where men gathered to smoke cigars and talk business. "You think he knows?" someone whispered. "Knows what?" "Come on, look at him. Man's been shooting blanks for years." "Careful, walls have ears." Grace froze in the hallway, tray balanced, breathing shallow. "I'm just saying those twins better look like him." Laughter. Dark. Knowing. She entered the study. 5 men stopped talking. "Just clearing glasses, gentlemen." They watched her collect crystal tumblers, stubbed out cigars. One of them, younger drunk, said, "You've been here a while, haven't you, Grace?" 6 years. Sir. You see everything in this house?" The room tensed. Grace met his eyes. "I see what I'm supposed to see. Nothing more." She left before anyone could respond. In the kitchen, Isabella appeared, face flushed. "Grace, I need you to drive to the pharmacy. I forgot my prenatal vitamins." "Of course, Mrs. Castellano." "And Grace?" Isabella's voice dropped. "Take your time. Maybe an hour. Their eyes met. Grace understood. Isabella wanted her gone, wanted privacy for something. Grace took the car keys, drove exactly 3 blocks, parked behind a closed furniture store, and ran back to the house through the service entrance. The basement was empty. She crept upstairs, staying in the shadows. Voices from the master bedroom. Isabella's door was cracked open. Grace pulled out her phone, activated the recording app. Marco's voice. He suspects. I saw how he looked at you during the speech. He hasn't said anything. He will. We need to move faster, before the twins are born. Marco, what if nothing? 2 weeks. There's a family meeting at the warehouse. Gas leak. Tragic accident. You're the grieving widow. I'm the protective nephew. The family votes me in. Done. Silence. Then Isabella, barely audible. He'll never see them grow up. Baby, he was never going to. Man like that, he'd get them killed anyway. Footsteps approaching the door. Grace ran. Made it to the basement 30 seconds before the pharmacy opened its after-hours service. She sat on her cot, hands shaking, recording uploaded to 3 separate encrypted servers. Her FBI handler would have it in an hour. But Marco had just moved the timeline. 2 weeks. Vittorio had 14 days to live, and Grace was the only person in the world who knew. She looked at Isabella's passport, hidden in her cleaning supplies, the one she'd photographed days ago. No stamps for Switzerland, but 12 trips to Miami over 18 months. Marco lived in Miami. Grace pulled out the burner phone, typed a message to her handler. Timeline accelerated. Target's life in immediate danger. Suspect planning murder before delivery. Advise. The response came instantly. Do not interfere. Maintain cover. Raid scheduled for October 21st. Let it play out. Grace stared at the message. Let it play out. Let Vittorio die. She deleted the message and made a choice the FBI would never forgive. The diner on Route 9 smelled like burnt coffee and lies. Grace sat in the back booth, hands wrapped around a mug she hadn't touched. Her FBI handler slid into the seat across from her. Agent Sarah Chen, 42, 12 years in organized crime, 0 tolerance for sentiment. You look like shit, Chen said. Didn't sleep. The recording you sent. Marco Benedetti planning to murder his uncle. Chen pulled out a tablet, kept her voice low. This is good. Better than good. This gives us conspiracy, not just the trafficking charges. Grace said nothing. Chen studied her. What's wrong? The timeline. You said the raid is October 21st. Marco moves in 2 weeks. That's October 21st. I know. So, Vittorio will be arrested before Marco can touch him. Chen leaned forward. Grace, this is what we've been building toward. 6 years of evidence, 40 indictments. We take down the entire network. And if the timing's off? If Marco moves earlier? He won't. Family meetings on the 21st. We verified it through wiretaps. Grace's stomach twisted. What if I'm wrong? What if... You're not wrong. You're exhausted. Chen's voice softened fractionally. Look, I know this is hard. 6 years pretending to be someone else, but you're almost done. 60 more days, and you get your life back. Grace thought of Amara. 4 months of silence. 4 months of her daughter not knowing if her mother was alive, dead, or something worse. My daughter won't return my calls, Grace said quietly. Chen's expression didn't change. She will. Once this is over, once you can tell her the truth, she'll understand. Will she? She's at Howard on a full scholarship because of you. She's safe because of you. She'll understand. Grace wanted to believe that. Needed to. Chen slid an envelope across the table. Your final payment at $20,000 plus the witness protection package we discussed. New identity, relocation assistance, job placement. Grace didn't touch the envelope. There's something else, she said. The twins. They're Marco's, not Vittorio's. Chen went still. You're certain? Medical records. Isabella was never in Switzerland, she was in Miami. With Marco. The whole IVF story was fabricated. Jesus. Chen processed this. So Marco's not just killing for power, he's killing for his own children's inheritance. The babies are due December 18th. If Vittorio's arrested before they're born, the twins become evidence in a custody case. Isabella turns witness. Marco's DNA gets tested. Paternity comes out. Chen nodded slowly. He goes to prison for conspiracy. Loses everything. Grace felt the weight of it. Those babies didn't choose this. No one chooses their parents. Chen's voice went hard. But those twins are also the keys to a criminal empire. You understand that? If Marco gets custody, he's running trafficking operations before those kids are in kindergarten. And if the state gets custody? Foster system. Maybe adoption. Chen met her eyes. It's not perfect, but it's not cartel violence. Grace thought of her own daughter. Thought of the choice she'd made. Safety over presence. Survival over love. I need you to promise me something, Grace said. When the raid happens, the women in the warehouses, they get medical care first, before processing, before interrogation. That's protocol. Promise me. Chen sighed. I promise. They'll be treated as victims, not criminals. Grace finally picked up the envelope. Felt the weight of $20,000. The price of 6 years. The price of watching a man love children who weren't his. The price of letting a killer plan a murder because the law needed perfect timing. There's one more thing, Grace said. Dr. Reyes, the physician who does Vittorio's house calls. I've seen him in the surveillance photos. He runs the medical exams for the trafficking victims. Chen's eyes sharpened. You're sure? I've seen his face 30 times. It's him. Then we add him to the indictment. Chen stood. Grace, you've done incredible work. 60 more days. Stay invisible. Let Marco think he's winning. We'll handle the rest. Grace watched her walk out. Sat alone in the booth as the sun rose. Thought about a surgeon who examined trafficked women for diseases. Thought about a nephew who called murder protection. Thought about a mafia boss who loved impossible children, and thought about herself. A woman who'd abandoned her daughter to save strangers, who'd spent 6 years lying to everyone, including herself. The waitress refilled her coffee. Grace finally drank it. It tasted like ash. Outside, a black sedan idled in the parking lot. Grace didn't recognize it, but she recognized the posture of the driver. Watching. Waiting. She left cash on the table and walked to her car. The sedan followed her for 3 blocks, then disappeared. That Grace drove back to Vittorio's house, hands steady on the wheel, mind calculating probabilities. 60 days until freedom, 14 days until murder, 8 weeks until twins were born into a world that would destroy them no matter who won. She parked in the service entrance and saw Vittorio standing at the kitchen window, watching her arrive. Grace couldn't sleep. She stood in the basement laundry room, folding Isabella's maternity clothes, when she heard it through the baby monitor she'd hidden in the nursery. Isabella's voice, whispering. Grace pulled out her earpiece, synced the frequency. Can't keep doing this. He watches me now. Differently. Marco's voice crackled through. Let him watch. 2 days until the family meeting. After that, he's not watching anything. What about after? What do we tell them? The twins? We tell them their father was a great man who died serving the family. They'll never know the truth. And Grace? Grace's breath stopped. The maid? Baby, she's been here 6 years, and no one knows her last name. Trust me, she disappears, nobody asks questions. It's already arranged. Marco, listen to me. In 72 hours, everything changes. You become the widow, I become the guardian. The twins inherit. We get married after a respectful waiting period. The family votes me in. This is what we planned. Silence on the line. Then Isabella, voice breaking. They're going to look like you, the twins. They'll have your eyes. Then everyone will think it's a miracle. The great Vittorio Castellano's children carrying his bloodline. Marco laughed. Except we know better. He'll never meet them. Never hold them. Would you rather he raise them? Turn them into what he is? Baby, we're saving these kids from becoming monsters. More silence. Grace's hands trembled. She pressed record, capturing every word. Marco continued. I've got everything arranged. Gas leak at the warehouse during the meeting. An explosion takes out the east wing. Vittorio and 4 of his top guys. Looks like the Corelli family retaliating. Clean. Untraceable. 4 other men will die. 4 other men who've trafficked women, killed witnesses, destroyed families. Don't make them saints. Isabella's breath shuddered through the speaker. And if something goes wrong? Nothing goes wrong. I've got people inside. The gas lines are already compromised. All I do is flip a switch remotely. Everyone thinks it's an accident. You grieve beautifully. I support you. The twins are born into a new legacy. Better than the one Vittorio built. What about the money? The FBI's been watching. Let them watch. They're building a case against Vittorio, not me. I've kept my hands clean. On paper, I'm just the nephew who helps with legitimate business. After the explosion, I'll cooperate with investigators. Give them just enough to look helpful. They'll never touch me. Grace's pulse hammered. Marco had thought of everything. One more thing, Marco said. The life insurance policy on Vittorio. 20 million. You're the beneficiary. Plus his properties, his businesses, everything held in trust for the twins. We're talking about $100 million empire, Isabella. Our children will never want for anything. Our children, Isabella repeated softly. God, Marco. Sometimes I forget they're real. That there are actual babies who'll exist in this mess we made. They're real. And they're ours. And in 3 months, you'll hold them and forget Vittorio ever existed. The call ended. Grace stood in the dark laundry room, entire body shaking. She'd known about the affair, known about the murder plot. But hearing Isabella, the woman she'd served breakfast to, done laundry for, watched glow with pregnancy, hearing her rationalize murder as mercy, Grace pulled out her phone, uploaded the recording to the encrypted server. Then she did something she'd never done in 6 years. She walked upstairs to Vittorio's study, knocked on the door. It was 3 a.m. The house was silent, but light showed under his door. Come in. Grace entered. Vittorio sat at his desk, paperwork spread everywhere, a glass of whiskey untouched beside him. He looked up, saw her, frowned. Grace, it's 3 a.m. I know, sir, Her voice caught. 6 years of staying invisible, 6 years of perfect silence. She was about to break every rule. I need to tell you something, she said. About your wife, about the twins, about October 21st. Vittorio went very still. His eyes, dark, calculating, dangerous, locked onto hers. Close the door, he said quietly. Grace closed it, and for the first time in 6 years, she told the truth. My name is Grace Osei. I'm an FBI informant. I've been in your house for 6 years gathering evidence against your trafficking operation. She pulled out her phone, set it on his desk. But right now, none of that matters. Because in 11 days, your nephew is going to kill you, and your wife is helping him. Vittorio didn't move, didn't blink. Why are you telling me this? Grace thought of Amara, thought of the twins who would be born into blood and lies, thought of herself, the woman who'd chosen survival over dignity so many times she'd forgotten the difference. Because I have a daughter, she said. And monsters don't get to raise children. Vittorio stared at her for a long moment. Then he pressed a button under his desk. The study door locked. Sit down, he said, and tell me everything. Grace told him everything. The FBI recruitment, the scholarship, the 6 years of surveillance, the recordings, the trafficking evidence, the timeline, and finally, the twins. They're not yours, she said. Isabella was never in Switzerland. She was in Miami with Marco for 18 months. Vittorio's face remained carved stone, but his hand on the desk curled into a fist. You have proof. Medical records, travel logs, bank statements, phone recordings. Grace pulled out a USB drive from her pocket. Everything's here. He didn't take it. The FBI knows about Marco's plan. They know, but they're waiting until the 21st. The raid happens the same day as the warehouse meeting. So they're using me as bait. Yes. Vittorio stood, walked to the window overlooking his property, his empire, everything he'd built on blood and fear. How long have you known? About the twins? 3 days. And you decided to tell me why? Grace met his eyes. Because those babies didn't choose this, and Marco's planning to raise them as his heirs, teach them to be what you are, what he is. And you think I'm better? No. Grace's voice was steady. I think you're terrible. I think you've destroyed lives, trafficked women, killed people. I think you deserve prison. Vittorio turned. Then why warn me? Because I've watched you for 6 years. I've seen you. Grace swallowed. You love those children. Even knowing they might not be yours, you love them. I've seen it in how you touch Isabella's belly, how you built that nursery yourself, how you read parenting books when you think no one's watching. His jaw tightened. Love doesn't make me innocent. No, but it makes you different than Marco. He sees those twins as property, inheritance. You see them as... She paused. As a chance to be something else. Vittorio was quiet for a long moment. Then he picked up his phone, called Dante. I need you at the house, now, and bring the file on Marco Benedetti. Everything we have. He hung up, looked at Grace. If I confront Marco, he'll accelerate the plan, kill you sooner. If I run, you look weak. Lose everything. If I go to the FBI, you go to prison. The twins become evidence. Marco still walks because we can't prove he's the father without DNA testing, and he'll never submit to that voluntarily. Vittorio laughed, a harsh, broken sound. So I'm trapped. We're all trapped, Grace said quietly. Footsteps on the stairs. Dante arrived, carrying a thick folder, saw Grace in the study. His hand went to his gun. Boss, she's FBI, Vittorio said calmly. She's also the only reason I'm not dead in 11 days. Sit down. Dante's eyes widened, but he sat. Vittorio opened the folder. Spread photos across the desk. Marco at restaurants. Marco at the Miami house. Marco with known criminals. And Marco with Isabella. Dozens of photos. Kissing, holding hands, entering hotels. You knew, Grace whispered. I suspected for months. Vittorio's voice was hollow. But suspecting and knowing are different things. Dante leaned forward. Boss, If Marco's planning a hit, he is. Warehouse meeting, October 21st. Gas explosion. Then we move first. Tonight. I can have him in the river by sunrise. And then what? Vittorio looked at his enforcer. Isabella knows. She's complicit. I kill Marco. She testifies against me. The FBI raids anyway. I lose everything. We kill them both. She's pregnant with twins. Vittorio's voice cracked. I'm not killing a pregnant woman. The room went silent. Grace spoke carefully. There's another option. You let the FBI raid happen. Cooperate. Turn state's evidence. You go to prison, but you control the narrative. Testify that Marco coerced Isabella. She gets immunity. The twins are born free. And I never see them, Vittorio said. No, you don't. He looked at the ultrasound photo still on his desk. Two shadows that would become people. People who would grow up knowing their father was a convicted criminal. They'll hate me, he whispered, and oh, maybe. Or maybe they'll understand you chose them over everything else. Dante shook his head. Boss, this is insane. We have power, resources. We don't need to surrender. We're already surrounded, Vittorio interrupted. The FBI's been building this case for years. Marco's planning to kill me. Isabella's betrayed me. He looked at Grace. And the only person telling me the truth is the woman who's been spying on me. Grace said nothing. Vittorio picked up the USB drive. What's on this? Everything. 6 years of evidence, but also recordings of Marco's plan. Proof of conspiracy to commit murder. Proof of paternity fraud. That's enough to arrest him? If you testify, if Isabella testifies, why would she testify against the father of her children? Grace pulled out her phone. Played the recording from 2 hours ago. The maid? Baby. She disappears. Nobody asks questions. It's already arranged. Vittorio listened to the whole thing. Heard Marco laugh about murdering him. Heard Isabella rationalize. Heard them plan a future built on his corpse. When it ended, his face was colorless. She's upstairs right now, he said. Sleeping in my house. Carrying children she made with my nephew. Planning my funeral. Yes. Vittorio looked at Dante, at Grace, at the empire crumbling around him. Get me a lawyer, he said finally, and get the FBI on the phone. I want full immunity for testimony, witness protection for the twins, and I want Marco Benedetti in prison for the rest of his fucking life. Grace exhaled. One condition, Vittorio added, looking at her. Your daughter. The scholarship. That stays. Whatever happens to me, she finishes school. She stays safe. Grace's eyes burned. Why? Because you just saved my life, and because... His voice broke. Because I understand what it means to sacrifice everything for your child. Upstairs, a door opened. Isabella was awake. Isabella's screams echoed through St. Michael's Hospital. Grace's phone glowed. Extraction tonight. Get out now. But upstairs, 2 babies were being born. Vittorio paced the waiting room. Marco arrived with flowers, smiling. Uncle V, how is she? In labor. A nurse called Vittorio up. Marco sat down, pulled out his phone. Grace's handler. FBI raid in 4 hours. Leave now. Grace took the elevator to 7. Through the cracked delivery room door, she watched. Push! A baby's cry. It's a girl! Then another cry. A boy. The doctor placed both babies in Vittorio's arms. He stared at them, tears streaming. My children, he whispered. Grace backed away, returned downstairs. Marco was on his phone. Born healthy. Both. He's playing daddy. Pathetic. 3 days. Family meeting, then problem solved. I'll have custody before anyone runs DNA. He turned, saw Grace. You've been here 6 years, Grace. Loyal. Never ask questions. He stepped closer. Help that notices too much? That help disappears. Understand? I understand. Grace went back to the delivery room, set down Isabella's bag. Vittorio looked up, still holding the twins. Grace, thank you for everything. Isabella frowned. For what? He didn't answer. Grace left, walked to the stairwell. Handler. Grace, status. She thought about Amara, about Vittorio holding babies that would be stolen, about Marco planning murder. She walked to hospital security. I need to report a threat to patient in room 714. The guard looked up. What kind? Grace showed him the recording of Marco. The kind that ends with murder. The guard radioed for backup. At the elevator dinged. Marco stepped out, saw Grace with security, saw her phone. His face went cold. Grace, what are you doing? 5 guards surrounded him. Sir, hands visible. Marco raised his hands slowly. This is family business. We'll sort it downstairs. They escorted him to the elevator. Marco looked back at Grace. You have no idea what you just did. The doors closed. Grace's phone exploded. Handler. What the fuck did you do? You compromised everything. Extraction now. Grace deleted the messages. Walked back to 714. Vittorio was alone, twins in his arms. What happened? I told security about Marco. They detained him. Vittorio went still. You destroyed your cover, your deal, your daughter. I know. Why? Grace looked at the twins. Because monsters don't get to raise children. Vittorio stared at her. Not even me? Not even you. Outside, sirens began to wail. The FBI was early. FBI agents flooded the hospital. Grace sat in a conference room, cuffed to the table. Agent Chen stood across from her, furious. 6 years of work gone because you couldn't follow orders. Marco was going to kill him. So what? Vittorio Castellano is a trafficker, a killer. Chen leaned forward. You think you saved those twins? You orphaned them. Vittorio's arrested. Isabella's getting charged. Marco will walk. Those babies go to the state. Grace's stomach dropped. You said if Vittorio cooperated. He can't now. You tipped our hand. Marco knows we're coming. Chen's voice went cold. And your daughter? The scholarship? Gone. The door opened. Vittorio walked in, flanked by agents. He saw Grace. I want to make a deal, he said. Chen blinked. Excuse me? Full cooperation. I testify against everyone. Names, dates, locations. His voice was steady. In exchange, immunity for Grace Osei. Her daughter's scholarship stays. And I want supervised visitation with the twins. Chen laughed. You think you're negotiating? Without my testimony, you have circumstantial evidence. With it, you dismantle the entire operation. Vittorio sat. Grace walks, non-negotiable. Chen calculated. 24 hours. Let me talk to the DA. They took Vittorio away. At 6 a.m., Chen returned with papers. Deal's approved. 15 years for Vittorio. You get immunity, daughter keeps scholarship, but no witness protection. You're on your own. And the twins? Isabella turned state's evidence. Keeps custody. Vittorio gets supervised visits twice a year. Chen slid papers across. Sign. Grace signed. One more thing. Marco posted bail, cut his ankle monitor, and he knows you turned him in. Grace's blood went cold. A junior agent burst in. Marco Benedetti's in the parking garage, demanding to see the maid. Chen pulled her weapon. Lockdown maternity. Grace stood. He's here for me. Let me talk to him. You're a civilian? He'll kill anyone in his way. Let me end this. Chen handed her an earpiece. You're wired. He threatens you. We move. The parking garage was cold. Marco stood by a black sedan, smiling. The maid. Who knew you had a spine? Grace stopped 10 feet away. It's over. Vittorio's cooperating. Isabella's testifying. I'm a victim. Uncle's a criminal. Lover was coerced. I'll get sympathy. He stepped closer. But you ruined everything. Those twins? I'll get custody eventually. Hi, and I'll make sure they know their father died because a maid got ambitious. Grace felt the wire. I'm not ambitious. I'm a mother who understands monsters. Then you understand I always win. No, you don't. FBI agents swarmed. Marco smiled as they cuffed him. See you at trial, Grace. Grace walked back to room 714. Empty. Isabella and twins moved to protective custody, but on the bed, an envelope. Inside, a photo of the twins, a note in Vittorio's writing. Thank you for choosing them. I'll spend 15 years making that choice matter. V. Grace folded the note and finally cried. The courtroom smelled like old wood and broken promises. Grace sat in the back row, hands folded. She'd been called as a character witness. Vittorio sat at the defense table in an orange jumpsuit, thinner, grayer, but his eyes were steady when they met hers. The prosecutor stood. The state calls Grace Osei. Grace walked to the witness stand, raised her right hand, swore to tell the truth. The prosecutor began. Ms. Osei, you worked in Vittorio Castellano's home for 6 years as an undercover FBI informant. Is that correct? Yes. During that time, you witnessed criminal activity? Yes. Trafficking operations, money laundering, violence. And you also witnessed Mr. Castellano's relationship with the twins. Grace's throat tightened. Yes. Can you describe that relationship? She looked at Vittorio. He nodded slightly. He loved them, Grace said quietly. Before they were born, he built their nursery himself, read parenting books, talked to them through Isabella's belly. Her voice cracked. When they were born, he held them like they were made of glass, like they were miracles. Even knowing they weren't biologically his, especially knowing that. The prosecutor paused. Ms. Osei, in your professional opinion as someone who observed this man for 6 years, is Vittorio Castellano dangerous? Grace took a breath. Yes. Should he have custody of these children? No. But you risked your cover, your daughter's future, everything, to save him. Why? Grace looked at the jury, 12 faces waiting for an answer that made sense. Because I have a daughter too, she said, and I know what it means to make impossible choices for your child. Vittorio Castellano is a criminal. He's hurt people, destroyed lives. She paused. But those twins, he chose them over his empire, over his pride, over everything. That's not redemption. But it's something. Something like what? Love, Grace whispered. Complicated, selfish, desperate. But love. The defense attorney stood for cross-examination. Ms. Osei, during your 6 years undercover, did you ever see Mr. Castellano harm a child? No. Did you ever see him put the twins at risk? No. He kept them away from the business. Completely. One final question. If Marco Benedetti had custody of these children, would they be safe? Grace met Marco's eyes across the courtroom. He sat with his lawyers, confident, untouchable. No, she said. They wouldn't. The judge called a recess. Grace stepped down, walked past Vittorio, and he whispered as she passed. How is she? Your daughter? Grace stopped. She graduated last month. Summa cum laude. She didn't invite me. She will. Eventually. How do you know? Because some things are worth forgiving. His voice broke. Even if they take a lifetime. Outside the courtroom, Grace found Isabella in the hallway. She held the twins, 8 months old now, The girl had Vittorio's dark hair. The boy had Marco's green eyes. "Grace," Isabella said, voice cold. "You destroyed my life. I saved your children. From what? From their father? From being raised by a murderer." Isabella's face twisted. "Marco never would have. He was going to kill Vittorio, then me, then anyone who knew the truth." Grace stepped closer. "You know that. You were there on the phone. You heard him plan it." Isabella looked away. I loved him." "I know. That's what makes it worse." The bailiff called them back. The jury returned after 4 hours. On the charge of human trafficking, guilty. On the charge of racketeering, guilty. On conspiracy charges, guilty. Vittorio stood, faced the judge, showed nothing. 15 years, federal prison, eligibility for parole in 8 years. The gavel fell. Guards took him away. He looked back once, found Grace in the crowd, mouthed, "Thank you." Grace nodded and watched him disappear. 5 years later, 2029. Grace stood outside a domestic violence shelter in Baltimore. Her shelter, built with the money from the FBI settlement. Inside, 23 women, survivors, like she'd been. Her phone buzzed. "Unknown number," she answered. "Grace Osei?" A young woman's voice, familiar. "Yes? It's me. Amara." Grace's world stopped. "Baby, don't." Amara's voice was careful, guarded. "I'm calling because I saw the documentary about the Castellano case, about you." Grace closed her eyes. The documentary had aired last month. 6 years undercover. The betrayal. The choice. "I didn't know," Amara continued. "All those years. I thought you abandoned me for a job. I didn't know you were—" Her voice cracked. "Mom, I'm sorry." "You have nothing to be sorry for." "I do. I refuse to see you. Blocked your calls. And you were saving people." Grace's throat burned. "I was surviving, just like you." Silence on the line. Then, "Can we meet? Not today, but someday?" "Anytime, anywhere, I'll be there." "Okay, I'll call you." The line went dead. Grace sat on the shelter steps, let herself cry. Her phone buzzed again. An email. From V. Castellano, Federal Correctional Institution, Otisville. Subject, "They're asking questions." Grace opened it. "Grace, the twins are 5 now, Lucia and Marco Jr. Isabella insisted on the name. They visit twice a year. Today, Lucia asked why I'm in the sad place. Isabella told her I made bad choices. She's not wrong. But then Lucia asked if I loved them, and I said yes. And she said, then why did you leave?" I didn't have an answer. How do you tell a 5-year-old that love and destruction can live in the same person? I hope your daughter forgives you. I hope mine do too. We made impossible choices. Maybe that's all parents do. Thank you for giving me the chance to make mine. V. Grace closed the email, looked up at the shelter. Women inside learning to rebuild. Thought about Amara, 24 now. Finally ready to talk. Thought about Vittorio. 3 years until parole. Teaching his children about consequences. Thought about the twins, growing up with a mother who betrayed a murderer and a father who loved them from prison. No happy endings. Just survival. Complicated and messy and human. Grace stood, went back inside. A new resident sat in the common room. Young. Terrified. Bruises hidden under makeup. Grace sat beside her. "Hi. I'm Grace. You're safe here." The woman looked at her. "For how long?" "As long as you need." Grace thought about a question she'd been asked 5 years ago in that hospital parking garage. "Do you understand I always win?" "No, Marco. Monsters don't win. People who choose survival, They win. One impossible choice at a time.